Um, please keep your microphone on mute unless you have a part in the service, at which point you can unmute yourself. But even while you are muted, you need to sing like you are in the shower with your most glorious voices so that we can feel your energy and we can bring in Shabbat together. And just a reminder that we are streaming services. So if you don't want your video shown, you can disable your video at this time as
They're
well.
not streaming it from the temple. They're streaming it through Zoom.
We're streaming it lots of different ways. We actually have some folks at the synagogue for a watch party. That is a new thing.
What are they watching?
They are watching our Zoom service.
They are watching us on YouTube, and it is projected onto a screen in the sanctuary.
Got it.
Micah, we're going to stop sharing the screen for a moment. Just to take a moment to see one another, welcome each other in. If you don't have Shabbat candles ready and you would like to light candles with us tonight, I want to invite you to go grab your candles at this time. We begin this evening with Psalm 133, Hine Matov. How wonderful it is that we get to be together here tonight. Hine Matov Umanayim Shevet Achim Gam Yachad Hine Matov Hine Matov Umanayim Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. How good it is to be together as one in love, joy, and laughter. How good it is to be in this moment together. Kulanu beyachad. Try it with me. Hine Matov. Hine Matov. Umanayim. Umanayim. Shevet Achim. Shevet Achim. Gam Yachad. Gam Yachad. Hine Matov. Umanayim. Shevet Achim. Gam Yachad. How good it is to be together as one in love, joy, and laughter. How good it is to be in this moment together. Kulanu beyachad. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Welcome.
Shabbat Shalom.
So for those just joining us, I'm Cantor Natalie Young. I am so honored to have my Rabbi Stephen Carr Rubin, and his beautiful wife, Didi Carr Rubin, joining us for services tonight. It is an incredible thing to have grown up in a congregation with so much learning, so much music, and so much involvement from our clergy who took a vested interest in inspiring the next generation. And I feel so honored that Rabbi Reuben is here, not just as my rabbi, but as my partner tonight. So welcome.
Thank you. You know, this is the very definition. If you look up kvel in the dictionary, this is what you see. You see an old rabbi like me looking at the screen and seeing a child who grew up in my congregation who is now a professional and an amazing composer, performer, spiritual leader, cantor of a whole community that she wraps in her arms and in her music. And for me, this is such a treat and such a privilege to be with Cantor Young tonight and to share this Zoom and this service, because it's a reminder to all of us that Judaism, even though we're thousands of years old, we're ever new, we're ever renewed. And those of us who like to write music, Jewish music and liturgical music, know that the words may be the same that have been handed down for thousands of years, but every time we give them a new version, every time we write a new melody, they take on a new life. And Natalie does that, and I've done a little of that. And that's what allows Jewish civilization to continue to grow and to thrive and to be ever new. So I'm thrilled to be here. The rabbi's lovely wife, Didi, is thrilled to be here and to share this service with you, as I know you're going to light Shabbat lights and usher light into our lives and the beauty and the softness and the sweetness of Shabbat. So let's all enjoy this time together.
Thank you, Rabbi Reuben. At this time, I want to invite everyone to light your candles. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu le'adlik ner shel Shabbat.
Amen. I spent a couple of years immersed in the writings of Rabbi Mordecai Kaplan, who founded Reconstructionist Judaism, and writing a book called A Year with Mordecai Kaplan that's really a Torah commentary for each week. And one of the things that Kaplan said about spirituality and holiness and divinity was that God is that aspect of reality which elicits from us the best that is in us and enables us to bear the worst that can befall us. And as we've all lived through this pandemic year, we have so often drawn upon that inner sense of holiness and spirituality and connection beyond the self that has allowed us to feel that we're part of something bigger than ourselves. If we've learned anything from this pandemic year, it's that we're all one and that we're all created and connected to one another. So
I'm going to move.
Are we going to?
I'm going to go back to Yedid Nefesh. Yeah.
Okay. So as we hear the beautiful words and the beautiful melody of Yedid Nefesh, it is a reminder, Yedid Nefesh, beloved of my soul, that it's when we open our hearts to one another and we bring love into the world that we can conquer any challenges, including the challenges of whatever nature may throw our way, whatever pandemic they may be. It's opening the hearts to one another that reminds us that the most important things in life are never things at all. They're always the relationships we have with the people we cherish. Many of you know that it is a tradition in Jewish life to speak about the relationship between the Jewish people and Shabbat, almost like a marriage. There's this sense of embracing and loving Shabbat that comes every week, as if it's the greatest relief in the world, that we wrestle with the week and then we have this little slice of paradise, this reminder of what life can be in the future every week when we have Shabbat. And in the Middle Ages, it was the custom of the Hasidim outside of the mystical city of Tzfat to sing this song, probably with a different melody since I wrote the melody we're going to share, but with the same words, Lecha dodi likrat kala, panei Shabbat nekabla, that we're supposed to approach Shabbat with the same joy and anticipation with which a bride or a groom would enter under the wedding canopy, that special spark, that passion, that excitement, that anticipation of joy and of celebration. So this version of Lecha Dodi I wrote in 1992 for my daughter Gable's bat mitzvah. She's now 41, so this was for her bat mitzvah, my version of Lecha Dodi. It goes like this. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, lai la la lai lai lai, panei Shabbat nikabela, lai la la lai lai lai. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, panei Shabbat nikabela, lecha Dodi likrat kala, lai la la lai lai lai. You can always join with the lai lais. Shamor v'zachor v'dibur echad, ishmianu el hamiyuchad. Adonai echad, Shemo echad, L'Shem ultiferet v'litpila, Lecha Dodi, everyone, Lecha Dodi likrat kala, lai la la lai lai lai, Panei Shabbat nikabela, lai la la lai lai lai, Lecha Dodi likrat kala, Panei Shabbat nikabela, Lecha Dodi likrat kala, lai la la lai lai lai. Itorari, itorari, Dam ki orech mi uri, 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 shir daberi, kavod Adonai Elohich nigla, lecha dodi likrat kala, lai la 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 lai, panei Shabbat nekabela, lai la 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 lai, lecha dodi likrat kala, panei Shabbat nekabela, lecha dodi likrat kala, lai la la lai lai lai. Ovi v'shalom ateret ba'ala, gam b'simcha u'b'tzahala, toch emunei Am segula, boi chala, le chadodi, le chadodi, le chadkala, lai la la lai lai lai, hane shabbat nekabela, lai la la lai lai lai, le chadodi, le chadkala, hane shabbat nekabela, le chadodi, le chadkala, lai la la lai lai lai. Lai la la lai lai lai, lai la 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 lai lai.
We recognize tonight that people come here to join us for services, to sit with our community with full hearts, with heavy hearts, and we welcome everyone, including our mourners among us tonight. We continue with our service with Chatzi Kaddish, led by Sarah Feynman.
Yitkada v'yitkada Shemei Rabbah Ve'alma divrach Yerutei v'yamlich malchutei B'chayechon u'b'yom echon u'chayedecho beit Yisrael Bagala u'bizman kari v'imeru Amen. Yesh me Rabba me varach le'alam u'la'lamei amaya Yiparach Yiparach v'yishtabach Yipa'ar v'yiroman v'yinasei V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalav Shemei Kudesha Prihu Leila min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata tamiran ve'alma ve'imeru. Amen.
We rise in body or spirit for Baruch Hu. Please be seated. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bidvaro mariv aravim b'chokhma poteach sh'arim. God of creation, who makes the evening fall from light into darkness with the setting of the sun, you unfold the heavens with brilliant moon and stars, and wrap our souls with peace. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bidvaro mariv aravim b'chokhma potiach she'arim. Baruch atah Adonai Mariv Aravim. We are loved by an unending love. We are embraced by arms that find us even when we are hidden from ourselves. We are touched by fingers that soothe us even when we are too proud for soothing. We are counseled by voices that guide us even when we are too embittered to hear. We are loved by an unending love. We are supported by hands that uplift us even in the midst of a fall. We are urged on by eyes that meet us even when we are too weak for meeting. We are loved by an unending love. Embraced, touched, soothed, and counseled. Ours are the arms, the fingers, the voices. Ours are the hands, the eyes, the smiles. We are loved by an unending love. Blessed are you, beloved one, who loves your people, Israel.
My favorite patriarch is Jacob. You know, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Jacob's my favorite. He's my favorite both because he wasn't the best kid when he was a young kid. And eventually grew up, and eventually changed, and eventually got better. Like many of us, who start out one way and get better. Like Rabbi Nachman of Bratslav once said, if you're not going to be better tomorrow than you are today, what need do you have for tomorrow? And Jacob was that kind of guy. And there's a wonderful midrash that says at the very end of Jacob's life, and we all know that Jacob had his name changed to Israel, so when you talk about Israel, you talk about Jacob, they're one and the same. At the very end of his life, says the midrash, he was literally on his deathbed, and he gathered all of his children around him. And he died in Egypt. He died in the diaspora. He died in a foreign country. He died where there were no longer any of his people in Israel. In fact, they were all in Egypt. And so you can imagine that after Abraham and Isaac and he being the third in this line of receiving this challenge from God, there he was about to die in this foreign country. And he was worried that what he stood for, what he cherished, his values, his way of life, the, quote, Judaism, so to speak, that he knew was going to die with him. And he gathered around all of his children, and he said to them, what's going to happen in this midrash? What's going to happen when I'm gone? Who will carry on after me? And according to the midrash, all of his children said, Shema Yisrael, that is, listen, pay it, hear, Israel, Jacob our father, Adonai Eloheinu, our God, that is your God and our God, Adonai Echad, is one and the same. And when he heard that, according to the midrash, his response was, Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. Then blessed will be God's name forever and ever, because they will be passed on from my generation to the next. And every time we pass on and say these same words, the most ancient prayer in our Torah, we are affirming all that went before us, those thousands of years of Judaism, civilization, holiness, spirituality, and faith in the future. That's the Shema.
Shema Yisrael Please join Sarah in chanting the Ve'ahavta.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך כיום על לבביך. ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאור על ידיך, והיו לתותפות בין עיניך, וכתבת על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
Beautiful. Lovely. So, Mordecai Kaplan once said that the greatest problem in Jewish life is to figure out how to get Jews to take the Torah seriously without having to take it literally. I think that's the challenge for any religious, any liberal, modern, contemporary religious person, how to take our sacred texts seriously without having to take them literally. Because if we take them literally, we get all hung up in the literalness of this happened or that happened or did it happen. And instead, the Mi Chamocha that we're about to share is one of those perfect examples, because the Mi Chamocha, of course, comes from the Torah, comes from that very moment when our ancestors, after hundreds of years of slavery, went free. And as they were literally walking to freedom, they were singing these words and singing this song, maybe not with Debbie Friedman's version, but with whatever version they had. And to me, it's a perfect example of what we need to incorporate in our own lives in every year, because it's a reminder that fundamentally what Judaism believes and what Judaism teaches is that freedom is the God-given right of every human being. And not only that, but that our freedom didn't come because God magically put God's hand down and lifted us up or put us on eagle's wings, as the metaphor goes, and flew us to Jerusalem. How did we get free? We got free literally one step at a time, with each of us, our ancestors, literally putting one foot in front of the other and walking out of slavery. And that's our challenge, I think, in every generation, to recognize that freedom is ours to grab and ours to create, and it's our steps, one step at a time, in every generation that's necessary for freedom to come to all of us. That's the Mi Chamocha.
מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נהדר בקודש, נור תהילות, אוסף פלא, מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נהדר בקודש. ברוך אתה אדוני, גאה ישראל. It's been a year and a half of many of us experiencing community through a screen. A very challenging thing to be able to feel those connections to one another. But somehow we have all had the experience, gathered here for Shabbat, gathered for Shiva, gathered for the Shabbat morning service on Saturday, the incredible connections that can happen. Hashkivenu is our opportunity to be partners with God in creating that shelter of peace for one another, reaching out to one another so that we can be that reminder of that love that Rabbi Rubin was talking about, keeping people grounded in faith and community. We need to be that reminder for one another that we can be that source of comfort and peace. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom V'hamidenu shomreinu l'chaim Hashkivenu Eloheinu l'shalom V'hamidenu shomreinu l'chaim. Spread the shelter of your peace over us. Guide us in wisdom, compassion, and trust. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom V'hamidenu shomreinu l'chaim. Save us for the sake of your name. Shield us from hatred, sorrow, and pain. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom V'hamidenu shomreinu l'chaim l'chaim l'chaim. Baruch atah Adonai Haporei sukat shalom Aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael ve'al Yerushalayim.
This prayer, this commandment of Vishamru in the Torah, we're reminded that Every week when we keep Shabbat, however we keep Shabbat, we keep Judaism alive. In many ways, it's sort of the ikar, the essence of what has kept Judaism thriving for thousands of years. The people of Israel shall keep Shabbat, observing Shabbat throughout all the ages, is a sign of the covenant between God and the people of Israel. לעשות את השבת, לעשות את השבת, לעשות את השבת לעולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, וביום השביעי, וביום השביעי שבת ויהי נפל. This week's Torah portion, I suppose the theme would be the art of disagreeing without being disagreeable, although it was in the Torah very disagreeable. And so every year when we read this portion, Korach, it's the greatest rebellion against Moses' leadership. And the rabbis wrestled with that and asked themselves, how is it that we can engage in disagreements and still at the end of that disagreement bring more holiness into the world rather than less holiness into the world? And as we've all lived through the last several years of increasing polarization of views and opinions in our country, let alone the world, we know how important, how crucial this challenge really is to the very fabric of our society. So as we listen to Adonai Sfatai and as we go into some silent meditation and personal thoughts, I'd like us all to think about, what can you do, what can I do to make sure the conversations that we have with others helps make the world better as a result, rather than more fragmented and more painful? How can we bring more shalom, more wholeness into all of our conversations, even with those with whom we disagree? And hold that in our hearts.
Adonai Sfatai Tifta Adonai sfatai tiftach, Adonai sfatai tiftach, ufi yagid tilatecha, ufi yagid tilatecha.
Elohai Neshama Shanatata Bi Elohai Neshama Tahorahi Tabarata Atayat Salta Atana Fahtabi Elohai Neshama Elohai Neshama Elohai Neshama Bakirbi Holy One with a soul you gave to me. Holy One, I am whole and gratefully. Every morning, every evening, everyone can see every miracle, every miracle, every miracle given me. Spirit breathing in me lightens up my soul. Holy light within me makes me whole. Elohai Neshama Shanatata Bi Elohai Neshama Tahorahi. Every morning, every evening, everyone can see every miracle, every miracle, every miracle given me. So, I'm going to share with you my favorite story from the Talmud. It's a short story. My favorite story from the Talmud is two guys in a rowboat. You've probably heard this story before because it's very popular because it's my favorite story in the Talmud. There were two guys in a rowboat, and they're in the middle of the ocean, and all of a sudden one of them picks up a drill and starts, drilling in the bottom of the boat. As you can imagine, the other person sitting in the rowboat freaks out and goes, "What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing?" And the person with the drill turns to his partner and says, "Well, what's it to you? After all, I'm only drilling under my seat." Well, obviously, that's my favorite story in the Talmud because it's so ridiculous. There is no such thing when you're in a rowboat as only drilling under my seat. And of course, it's the obvious metaphor for the world. There's no such thing as drilling under my seat in the world either. We're all in this boat together. We're all in this planet together. In fact, I always remember my favorite image from the very first time that the Earth was photographed from space. Many of you have seen it because it's this beautiful picture of the globe of the Earth, this blue and white spinning globe in the middle of the vastness of space. And the first thing I noticed when I saw that picture, the very first time, years and years ago, from space, was what's missing. What was missing from that picture? There weren't any little dotted lines that showed where the United States ended and, let's see, Mexico began, or Canada began, or any of those, all those many countries in Europe. You looked at the Earth, you didn't see little dotted lines. You saw one globe. You saw one family. You saw one reminder of exactly what I said a few moments ago, that the pandemic, if nothing else, has taught us that we're all in this boat together, that there's only one. In fact, it's what Jews have known for more than 3,000 years. We just said it, we just sang it a few minutes ago with Cantor Young when we sang Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. That's our affirmation that there's always more that unites us than there is that divides us, that we are one. We have said that for thousands of years. In spite of all that's gone on in the world around us, we keep saying over and over and over that we get it, that there's just us, and that us is everyone. Now, this week's Torah portion, as I mentioned, is all about the art of disagreeing. This, in fact, there's a great statement in the Talmud. It's actually this funny guy named Ben Bagbag who said, "Hafachba, v'hafachba, turn it, because everything is in it." The it he referred to as Torah, that everything's in the Torah because you can find everything in the Torah, even what's going on in our politics. I'm not going to talk about politics, but today, because what we have in this week's Torah portion is the very first example of fake news and conspiracy theories. We have fake news because we have those who were rebelling against Moses and Aaron, who had the audacity to claim to all of the people, as they accused Aaron and Moses of being evil and of being self-serving and of being those who were only wanted their own personal power and aggrandizement. And what was the challenge? What was the accusation? They said, "You brought us out of a land flowing with milk and honey to die here in the wilderness." It's like, we've all heard these things where those people who want to attack us take exactly the opposite and then they treat it as if it's the truth. Well, that was this, obviously. Exactly the opposite. Moses was leading them to the land of milk and honey, not taking them out of the land of milk and honey, and yet that's what they challenged. And I realized when I was thinking about this week's Torah portion, I realized why they were fighting this week, Dafka. Why this week was it the greatest rebellion in all of the Torah? And the reason was because of last week's Torah portion. If those of you who are reading or watching last week, you may remember, it was Shlach Lecha. Last week was when we got to Israel in the first time, because we got there twice, and we sent those 12 scouts out. You may remember the story, and they came back and 10 of them said, "It's too scary. We felt like we were like grasshoppers in their eyes, and we can't possibly go in." And because of that, God condemned them to turn around and wander for the next 38 years. That's why they were condemned to 40 years of wandering, not because it took 40 years to get from Egypt to Israel, obviously. Any of you have been there know it's very close. And so this week's rebellion was really a rebellion out of fear. And it's a lesson for us of what fear can do. We've seen it in our politics. We've seen it often in our families. We've certainly seen it this year. We've seen it in the rise of anti-Semitism in America and across the world. We've seen the corrosive power that fear, the grip that fear can have on the hearts of human beings that can turn them against one another. And so, if there's any lesson this week that we learn from this week's Torah portion, it's our challenge in every generation to find enough blessings around us to transcend the fears that inevitably come into our hearts. Because, life is messy, life is complex, life isn't simple. My favorite metaphor for life itself is the EKG. If you're plugged into an EKG, which measures your heart, if you're alive, this is what it does. You don't want it to do this, right? You want it to do this. This is literally the pulse of life. And what we learn from that is in every aspect of our lives, in the political world, in the social world, in our work world, in our families, in our friends, this is the pulse of life. And we need to learn to breathe, to relax, to know when we're like this, it's gonna go up again. And then it will go down again and it will go up again. This is literally what life is all about. And so we have, as a people, the opportunity to draw upon the thousands of years of Jewish tradition to recognize that fear can be debilitating. And it's up to us to elevate the highest and the best and the noblest impulses in our hearts, to take our sacred literature, to take our sacred texts, and to hold them up as examples of what the human beings can comprehend and what human beings can transcend. Even hundreds of years of slavery. With faith, we eventually were willing to put that blood on the doorposts of our house and to experience, as the Haggadah teaches us, B'chol dor v'dor chayav adam lirot et atzmo ki'ilu hu yatsa miMitzrayim. In every generation, it's up to us to literally feel like we are carrying the banner of freedom and of holiness for all people. And if we join together to do that, then the world will conquer the fears of the many, because the hearts of the few can always conquer the fears of the many. So I thank you for sharing this moment, these few moments with me, and for allowing me to be a part of your service tonight. And Shabbat Shalom for that.
Yeshkoach, thank you. Some beautiful Torah tonight. We bring into this sacred space the names of all of our loved ones who are in need of healing this Shabbat. Holding in our hearts those who seek wholeness of mind, body, and spirit. Together we hold up those who battle addiction, those who suffer from mental illness, and hold in our prayers strength for the caregivers who work hard to support those struggling with illness. God, in your oneness, may we find healing and strength. May we find renewed wholeness and purpose. And may we find peace. I invite you at this time, if you'd like to share the names of your loved ones who are in need of our prayers this Shabbat, please add them into the chat. Mi sheberach avotenu Avraham, Yitzchak v'Yakov Mi sheberach imotenu Sarah, Rivka, Leah v'Rachel. May the one who blessed our mothers, may the one who blessed our fathers, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, and bless us as well. Bless us with the power of your healing. Bless us with the power of your hope. May our hearts be filled with understanding and strengthened by the power of your love. Hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, and bless us as well. Few reminders about some upcoming events in our community. I hope that you will all take the time to join us on Monday virtually for our congregational meeting. More information online, but this Monday at 7 p.m. Next, we have our annual Child Spree event. We have an incredible opportunity for congregants to make the difference in the lives of 50 foster and at-risk kids by providing them with essentials to start the school year prepared. Again, more information online. We are still looking for some volunteers. This is an unforgettable experience for everyone involved. And thank you to Wendy Lupel for sending this to us. Something special this Shabbat morning and the second Shabbat of the month thereafter. We'll have the opportunity to share at the end of Shabbat services the good news in our lives, just like the L'chaims we used to do at Jerusalem Shabbat. So please join us tomorrow morning and share the blessings in your life. This time I invite everyone to rise for Aleinu. Aleinu לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצא בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם וגורלנו ככל עמונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא. ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד. This time we recall our loved ones whom death has recently taken from us. In the period of Shloshim, we remember Florence Friedman, the mother of our member, Joyce Rubel. In this Shabbat, we also remember Vidal Bemergi, Herbert Borman, Teresa Kaplan, Alfred Chase, Rose de Lima, Sal de Lima, Shemuel Ben Eliyahu, Helen Mary Fearley, Mitchell Flightman, Frida Goldschmidt, Stephen Goodman, Thelma Gottlieb, Shirley Greenberg, Sam Green, Honey Henderstein, Israel Jusidman, Sol Kalik, Celia Kaplan, Reuben Kramer, Samuel Kramer, Lillian Dorothy Krantz, Carol Leibowitz, Gerald Leash, Maria Matos, Ruth Minnick Mendelson, Gerald Merton, Lillian Priestler, Rosalind Rambod, Julius Rosen, Isaac Sherman, Gerald Steinberg, Jack Visnov, Carol Raverby Warkel, Jan Warshaw, Zelda Nemerson Weiss, Sydney Wolf, Philip Wolfson, and Mark J. Zoller. If anyone has any other loved ones who you are remembering this Shabbat, again, we invite you to add their names in the chat that we may lift them up together. Please join me in the Mourner's Kaddish. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, בעלמא יברח יודותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן, יהי שמי רבה מברך לעולם ולעלמי עמיה. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו, לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, תאמירן בעלמא ואמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה, וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ועל כל יושבי תבל, ואמרו amen. May all of our loved ones be remembered as a bright and beautiful blessing. Ose shalom bimroma, hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel ve'imru עשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל ואמרו אמן. היי! שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל ואמרו amen. Now's the time to grab that delicious glass of wine and some challah as we join Mark for Kiddush and Motzi.
Shabbat Shalom to everyone. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratza banu v'shabbat kodsho v'yachabar uvratzon hinhilanu zikaron lema'aseh bereishit ki hu yom tehila lamikra'e kodesh zecher letziat Mitzrayim kivanu v'charta v'yotanu kidashta mikol hamim v'shabbat kodecha Riachavat uvratzon hinchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh hashavat lechaim. Lechaim.
L'chaim.
Anybody have challah? Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. V'tevot.
Teavon, Shabbat Shalom. Again, a special thank you to Rabbi Stephen Carr-Rubin and his wife Dee Dee for joining us tonight for services. And your mama's here. I think I saw her somewhere.